Fire EMS Zoom meeting. Hope everyone's doing well. The only person is Quinn. Chief Romay, are you on? No Chief Romay. Okay. Maybe he'll come on in a few minutes. So good morning. I just want to make sure I have everybody accounted for. So I have me, I have Mike Perry, I have Nikki, you on? Nicole, Nikki, are you there? Yep, I see you. Can you unmute? Just want to make sure she's working. Good. Okay. Hi, Nikki, and welcome. Oh, there you go. Nikki, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Thanks. John, can you hear us? You good? Hollander? There he is. Okay. Got you. Gary Warren, you can hear us okay?
Yes, can hear you fine.
Good deal. Wayne? There
yeah, all good.
Good deal. Chad?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Good deal. David, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Richard?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Good deal. And Tina and Jeff?
We can hear you.
Well, hey there. All right, got you both. All right. So the ones that I have missing so far are Clue, Matt, John Chapman, and Chief Romay. So, I'm sorry. Very good. So if everybody is able to hear us, we are streaming live on YouTube. We do have a few people that requested to watch the meeting today. So I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's at 9:04 a.m. So has everybody received the agenda for today and the minutes from last meeting?
Yes.
Very good. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I also sent you an updated list for our proposed organizational chart, some new numbers in it, as well as a couple of days ago sent you the skeleton, so to speak, of the report that we're going to work on today. I want to make sure everybody has those documents. If not, I can easily email them to you. Hey, Jacob, if I email you a document, can you use it when we need it? Thank you. Give me 1 second. Go find it and send it to him. Okay. So I don't mess up, maybe it'd be best that you handle that for me, please. So I'm going to send you two. I'm going to send you this one, and then I'm going to send you this one. Send. All right, you should have it. All right, so if we can go into the agenda, our approval of the minutes. Sent them out yesterday. If you need time to review them, please do so. If someone needs me to resend them, I'll be glad to do it.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Motion to approve. All right, from Wayne. And second?
Second, Jim.
Second from Mike. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So Jacob, did you get the email? Did you open up the one document, the one for July 14th organizational chart? Please, could you? Okay, so what I did is I took information that Clue provided me for several of the positions, and I created just a summary of where we are. So let's just look at the deputy chief's position. Can everybody see this? Everybody good? Okay, hear none. So where it says PC in parentheses, 124,500, that is salary and benefits for Putnam County. And the average, I did average together the deputy chief positions that he provided me, and with salary and benefits, that position would be $149,642. So that's how you'll see the breakdown for deputy chief. For us, for an operations division chief, or maybe even a district chief, whatever terminology we'd want to use, we had $107,900. And then the average that I was able to put together was $120,686. From the fire captains, there is no comparison that was presented, and this is what we have currently budgeted. This is a firm figure, so we're just going to use that. Of 3 fire captain positions that we need at $230,133. I didn't find any information in that from a logistics section coordinator, so I kept it the same. I think the comment here is that once we present this to the board and they present it to staff, it's really going to be left up to staff based on, our recommendations of what that salary may look like. And that's the starting salary. That's certainly not a increase in range, and it's not potentially with a job description being created that staff doesn't recommend that figure to be increased. But you'll see there the total benefits is $64,831. So for training section coordinator, I did find an average, and that average was $75,120, which is slightly greater than what we were looking at $64,831. And then the rest of the positions that you'll see remain the same. Again, I didn't have any comps to use for EMS coordinator, volunteer coordinator, recruitment retention coordinator, basically the same. Firefighter EMT, that's the salaries that we're paying at this time. And I did take the average costs, added them to the existing costs, and I did elevate that number to $2,281,307. So it was just elevated slightly, 50, 60 some odd $1,000. That's just a rough figure still, which doesn't include vehicles or equipment or other needs, through the hiring process that would really be, included. Like you hire 23 people, that's a lot of extra money that we're going to talk about, from testing, medical, drug testing, that whole process. Somebody say something, I'm sorry. Hey, Chief, are you on? All right, so that's what I have. Y'all, your thoughts on this? Any thoughts from the group?
Jim, my only thought is, and I brought it up last meeting, is I know we need the 23 firemen. We're not going to not ask for them, but does it need to be in the organizational chart? Because actually this organizational chart is not 100% complete because we had to stop the chart due to negotiations with the union.
Right.
Do we take that out and present that as another bulletin point and emphasize that we need the 23 firemen and not stick that in an organizational chart figures?
We certainly can. We can break it out. Absolutely. That's certainly an option. We can also show those 23 firefighters going to Station 6 and Station 4. If we were to break that out separately, what did we have? 11 in one place and 12 in another? I think that's what we looked at. So whatever the committee wants, it's an easy stroke of the pen to make happen.
Quick question, Jim.
I'm sorry, Richard, were you finished?
Yeah, I was just going to say it is as somebody from the outside or even the board members looking at I'm going to call it sticker shock of an organizational chart. Those 23, that almost 1.5 million you've got there is basically operational, organizational structure to fix. The organizational chart was to fix a lot of the other problems that were going on, not the manpower issue.
Okay. I certainly see that. John, were you going to say something?
Just after watching the meeting yesterday, it seems the commission is wanting a public safety director. Is that something we need to try to incorporate into this, or that's something they're doing on their own? What's the point of that? Do we have any insight on that?
I do. I can say that that's a funded position. That is part of Mr. Suggs' reorganization of the county. And yes, so that's something that we can certainly include in here to say, from an organizational structure, we could just show it above the fire chief. I don't know how that changes the structure. So looking to your thoughts on that. But it is going to be a position that is hired and implemented. I can't tell you when, but they're in the throes of doing that now.
So,
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Wayne, go ahead.
yeah, okay. So when I saw that, me being the doubting Thomas that I am, I certainly hope our recommendations, and I know this was not one we can answer here, I'm just expressing a concern. I hope our recommendation doesn't get shelved, quote unquote, until we hire this person and this person gets a chance to go through our recommendations. Just a comment.
Okay. Well received. Anybody else? Chad, were you going to say something?
Yes, sir. Just a point of clarity on the captains. You're going to have one battalion chief and 3 captains per shift. Is that correct? Is that the way I read this?
Yeah, so go ahead. Somebody, Quinn, were you going to say something?
That's correct.
So if I understood it, Chad, correctly, we'd have a battalion chief that would span that 24-hour period of time. You would have a captain for Alpha, a captain for Bravo, and a captain for Charlie.
I think that's where the mix-up is coming from. If you have the battalion chief per shift and then the 3 captains, South, Central, and West, and then you have the 3 shifts, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, that's a good point, because each shift would have the same structure.
Okay, so what needs to help me understand and get past what we have here on our org chart?
Jim, I think what you need to do is instead of calling these District 1, District 2, and District 3, call them shifts A, B, and C, and then it would look correct.
Okay, I understand that. So if we were to change, can you see my, or Jacob, can y'all see my cursor moving over?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would change this to shift 1, we would change this to shift 2, and change this to shift 3. Okay, go ahead. So each one of those would change from District 1 to Shift 1, Alpha Bravo Charlie, Shift 2, Alpha Bravo Charlie, Shift 3, Alpha Bravo Charlie?
No, just A shift where you have District 1, ABC, just make that A shift.
Oh, okay. I got that. Got it. So I understand. So it will then read District 1 in parentheses A or A shift. District 2, Bravo shift. District 3, Charlie shift?
No, it
Okay.
should just say A shift, B shift, C shift, and then take out district, A, B, and all that other stuff.
One more time, Chief.
It should just say A shift in one box and take out division 1A, the other stuff. And then the next one, instead of saying district 2, it'll say B shift. And then the third one, instead of saying district 3 and all that, it'll say C shift. Because we just have 3 shifts and we call them A, B, and C shift.
Okay. All right. So let me go here. Give me a second. Just want to make sure I understand this. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to change this to and am I getting rid of the A, B, and C for A shift, right? It's just going to say A shift, right? For the first box.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Hey, Jacob, I'm going to send it back to you again. Can you populate it for me? All right. Coming to you now, Jacob. Did you get it? How's that? Richard, is that better?
Yes, that looks better to me.
Quinn?
Yeah.
Everyone else okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's get back to the public safety director's position. I would envision seeing that public safety director's position over top of fire here. That public safety director, if I'm not mistaken, would also manage EMS, emergency management and a few other areas. Chief Romay, do you understand the same?
No. Well, I don't know. I haven't heard the details.
Okay. All right. So we'll at least have some umbrella over this from a public safety director. How do we need to address that then, or do we?
Jim, it doesn't really seem like we have an option. It sounds like this is something the board wants to do. I guess they're going to kind of interject it where they want.
Okay. But does it change? I don't think it changes this at all.
Jim, Gary.
Go ahead, Gary.
Question on that. Most other counties around that has a public safety director. The director is over all emergency operations in that type area. And I'm a little confused here. Are we restructuring totally and having one person in charge of everything over, including Chief Remay over top of him?
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't I don't know the answer. All I can say is we would have a fire chief that would be reporting to the public safety director. If I envision this, we're recommending to the board to accept this layout as not a Band-Aid, but a true fix to the problem from an organizational structure for Putnam County. And so if that fire chief, which you see we already have in place there, that fire chief would just then report to the public safety director. I don't see it any differently than that to somebody else. I don't think it changes what we are requesting here.
Right.
How about you, Mike Perry?
No, Jim, I agree with you. I'm not sure how it changes what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Jim, I think our charge from the board was to look at fire rescue, so I'm not sure that adding, or worrying about emergency management or whatever those other departments may end up being may not,
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm only thinking, of what potentially could be there as a public safety director of, all the things that he or she could be over. So, it's certainly in the vision of Mr. Suggs, and the board did approve yesterday. I guess, isn't that the direction they took yesterday to approve that? I think it was funded already.
His organizational chart was approved with the changes he made.
Very good. All right. So from our org chart, are you all now comfortable with what you see here?
I am.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification of getting A, B, and C, or Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie fixed up for us. That's a big thing.
And Jim, you're going to move like Richard was saying, the firefighter into a separate area, line item or something?
Yeah, let's finish talking about that. Quinn, I'm glad you brought that up. So I think that would work well because they're truly not in the organizational structure of creating new positions. They fall well below, in the subordinate roles from the hierarchy here. We're not showing the rest of the firefighters. We're not showing the rest of the paramedics. We're not showing staff people that we have, although we do show the ambulance billing. We're not showing the rest of the staff that's there. So yeah, we can take that out, but it still has to be, included in the report from a staffing. So would we keep it under the staffing? If you look at the second bullet point under observations, recommendations, and we certainly can change the names of these. We started out with accountability and culture, then staffing. We would then just add new positions there.
Jim, if I may, Chad?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Richard mentioned sticker shock. Something else that probably needs to go close to this is the amount of money that it's going to take for new stations or renovation of stations. I could see that nearly doubling this 2.2 million in the first couple of years.
And Chad, just to, if I can, I do appreciate, the thought going down that avenue. Chief Romay told us, I think we were looking at what, $1 million to get Station 6 up and running, Chief?
Yes.
So certainly, I think if we stayed within that ballpark for a station out on the west side, like we were talking about, wouldn't that, in our plan, we would have the 24-hour capability with a new station out on the west side. So we'd be looking truly about one new fire station right now, correct? To take care of the staffing of these.
I think we need to be cautious that, one station will fix the problems we've got, because it certainly won't. And
right.
In the budget that I've submitted over the last several years, and this one I even increased the cost of building, because you never know what the cost of construction is going to be, and engineering and architect. I put in renovation and new stations in there. So, I mean, you could either say, see the budget request or use those figures.
I understand what you're saying there, Chad. I do. And if I can also say, a few people responded back to my email that I initially sent out with our breakdown for the proposed report. And I didn't respond back purposely. I didn't want us to get into a sunshine issue. So I just wanted to be cautious with that. But I also see that we do need to explore, and how do we let the board know that we're going to need new fire stations, we're going to need new equipment, but that's going to take time to come up with costs. So how would you want us to address that here for new stations? Go ahead, Chad.
Chief Ramey, what is the number that you proposed, and do you think that would cover the necessary building improvements or new stations that we're speaking of?
I would have to look to get you the exact number, but it was like 3 million to somewhere in there, 3-4 each year ongoing. Because we've got 18 stations, and whether it's we're putting paid people in there, or it's the volunteer stations, we've got to start fixing these buildings up and getting them into the roofs.
I think if you
on and on.
Jim.
Yes, sir.
Gary. Question on our proposal here. Can we not break this down into a 2, 3, 5 year or 5, 10, 15 plan and add that in at some point in there as we go down the line?
Hey, Gary, if I can, last week we discussed breaking up the plan, and we felt as a committee, if I'm speaking for the committee, if you all agree with this, that we're going to make one presentation. This is what we need to get things fixed. We didn't talk in depth about how we were going to fund or talk about the fire stations. So I really think that conversation's coming up right now.
Okay, I have another concern, if I may, while we're here. And
Sure.
This is great for our future and trying to fix our system, but we have a current problem at hand that we need to address immediately. And that's trying to do some help with people that's already taking care of the system and keep them in place and get new people in until we can get this other land system in place and also equipment. And those are pretty immediate needs. So we need to figure out how we can adjust or address that issue while we're going through here so we can have a basic start. Something that needs to be done pretty quick.
All right. Does anybody want to address or tail on to that?
Chad here.
Go ahead, Chad.
I would propose that we take the numbers that Chief Ramey has already studied and put in and presented to the board in his budget, and be sure that is part of this task force recommendation as far as capital improvements for facilities.
Okay. So would we create, so under fire stations, we would add, if you look at the proposed report, under there, we would add Chief Ramey's budget request?
That's what I'm thinking. Chief, do you think that would be sufficient?
I would probably, instead of calling it fire stations, call it capital request. Because you've got trucks, you've got gear, you've got all of the things that you're going to have to put people in the stations, and besides just building a station too.
No, I got you. I just made that change. Like I said, all this is malleable. We can certainly change whatever the committee sees to ensure that our report is meeting our needs and what message we want to send. Absolutely. Okay.
And if we can get the board to adopt 1720, that gives us the future plan and the ability to plan on, because in there it talks about numbers of people, stations, response times, things like that. So that'll give you at least some data and some a good method to to move forward with your multi-year planning too.
Sure. No, I agree. And that's certainly one of the tenets that we're going to talk about is NFPA 1720. Absolutely. All right. So let's get back to the fire stations. So does the committee agree then we would take the language and change it to capital requests or capital improvements, whatever we come up with, and add what Chief Ramey has added in the budget request? Y'all are good with that? All right, hearing nobody oppose that. Good job, Chad and committee. All right. Let's see. So just kind of finishing up on old business here. Anything else on the org structure or the capital improvements? We can certainly delve into them later, but if we need to, just want to make sure that there's nobody else that wants to comment on this. All right, hearing none. According to our agenda, we had a logistics space update by John Chapman, who's not here, so we'll just table that. I know what he's going to talk about. He's going to send us, of what they see out in the field. Well, we already know that we need someone to manage that position, and I'm pretty confident we get a full-time person in there. Their performance will pay for that job easily. Because of everything that will be taxed or tasked to that person, based on what I've seen so far. Okay, moving on to new business, discussion and work of our draft report that we presented to the board. Did everybody get the article that I sent you in the Plaquemine Daily News after our last meeting? Everybody see it?
I do.
Okay. It's very obvious. It's out there that everyone knows what we're looking at from a dollar figure, at least the basement figure of $2 million at least. So that's certainly out there, and I think that's resonated well. I haven't heard any negative feedback. Has anybody else?
No.
Okay. So let's, hey, Jacob, can you put up the Putnam County Fire EMS Committee, this draft that I have, please? There we go. And can you take it out of the view or maybe put it into where it shows it on one page to start with? I'm seeing it to where it says File Tools and View, and it shows the a reader view on both pages. Yeah, much better. Thank you. Let me bring that one up. Okay, so can everybody see that? I just threw some things together, and we've already made a change to, from fire stations to, and I'm making it here, capital improvements. So you've seen the other reports. And again, what I've seen in those other reports, we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it many years later, for the most part. So I'm just looking for a way to put this together, and then at our next meeting, we'll have a lot of the meat and potatoes, so to speak, in here for us to review, strike, add to, come up with what we feel is absolutely appropriate, and then move forward with our presentation on the 28th. And just so you know, I did ask administration this morning about us as a group meeting together somewhere when we make the presentation. Administration said they're looking at it. If they can make it happen, as long as we meet the social distancing, the CDC guidance, they're going to make that happen for us. So we just want to make sure that we are appropriate what we're doing, and I should hear something back soon. But I did make that request this morning, and administration did make those comments. So I'm excited that will come to fruition. So looking at this, we can get into the graphics part later of what it looks like. But, starting out, this is a presentation of critical EMS fire observations and recommendations to the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners. And I just laid it out, starting out with an index. I don't know how many pages this will end up with. So, we'll have a cover letter, a cover page, maybe even a cover letter from us, signed by us to the board. That's a potential. And then I was thinking our mission statement or our charge from the board, what that was. So I'm just going to stop there and ask for your input up to this point. What would you like to see up to this point?
Hey, Jim, I have a question about your, could you help me understand how, do you envision doing this through a, like a better word, PowerPoint presentation or a bullet point, or what's your thought process? Or I guess I should ask the committee, what is their thought process?
Yeah. How about committee members? What do y'all think? I have a thought on this, but go ahead.
I would go with Jim's recommendation.
Thanks, Chad. Don't you have internet problems right now? Come on.
Well said, Chad.
Mike Perry, what do you think?
Jim, I tell you the truth, I think that I'd like to hear what you have to say, because you're going to be the one trying to put this together for us and present it. But I'm still trying to get my head around some of this and how we need to proceed. But
okay,
if I do come up with something, I'm thinking about it.
Okay,
I'll certainly interject it here.
How about anyone else? Nicole, John, Tina, or Jeff, Richard? Any thoughts?
One thing I would say, Jim, is it just whether you do it in PowerPoint or bullet point, just not to get bogged down in the weeds, to highlight the critical things that we've identified, and through this committee, and not get bogged down in the small details.
Okay. Thanks, John. Anyone else? So here's a thought that we put together a report. It's, we can bind it. It could be sent electronically. But I do believe for the presentation itself, I don't see this as being our last presentation to the board. This will be their first time that they'll get to see it. I'm sure that the board's going to need to digest it. They're going to need to pull it apart in their own thoughts, and ideas. And that we do break it out maybe into a PowerPoint presentation, putting the most critical overview in that PowerPoint presentation. And potentially they take this to a workshop. I don't know where they go after this, but to where we can kind of pull the report out more. I agree with John. If we do the whole report, it might get lost. Our delivery may get lost of the message. But, maybe just as a PowerPoint, here's our mission statement. Here's our committee members, like a brief summary. And then we hit some of the bullet points under accountability and culture. The report says this, but this is taken from the report. We feel this is the most critical, but not to say that the rest of the report for accountability and culture is not important, but, and we list it that way towards a more condensed, high profile issue first presentation. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah. Jim is Quinn. Just one thing to add, we need to have somewhere where ISO is talked about.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah.
Because that is definitely an issue right now with some of the board members. They're
agree. I missed that, and I'm glad you mentioned it. So I'm just going to add it under observations, recommendations, under standing EMS fire committee. I'm just going to put ISO ratings there. We'll talk about it, and wherever we want to put it into the flow of things, we can do that at our next meeting. Absolutely. Good call, Chief.
Because I think the overarching thing is getting the organizational structure right, where everybody's on the same page with NFPA, with ISO, with SOPs, you know, on and on. So we're all operating together in one team.
Okay. So let's just, if we can, let's go back to the top. So if we're going to write this report, do you all, do you like the idea of just a report and then summarizing it into more bullet points in a PowerPoint presentation for the board?
Do.
Yes, you like that? Everybody good with that? Okay.
Yeah, I think Mr. McLean said it best too, is we've got to keep it in a form and fashion that they're gonna stay interested, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you know, like he was talking about, a presentation is, because you're gonna
I see it much longer than that, Chief, because there's some major things to talk about. And I think we need to afford ourselves the opportunity to allow the committee members to come up, especially from a passion standpoint that they have. If we can be in that group together and making that presentation, this is a huge issue. And I just don't see, respectfully, a 15-minute presentation.
No, what I was meaning is we're going over the bullets where, you know, we're going to explain them in detail, but like Mr. McLean said, we want to get their attention and
absolutely.
And, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Great point.
I'm not discounting or shortening it by the overall.
I agree. I think that's a great point. Absolutely. All right. So if we look at the structure of this, let's just start from the top. So we'll have an index that will just, from the report itself, not the presentation, but the report. We'll have an index. It'll be clearly defined what, you know, these topics underneath index will be in the report from a page number standpoint. And so then if we can start on this mission statement charge, what are your thoughts about that? You want to use mission statement? You want to use charge from the board? How do you want that to be titled, and what do we want here? Just in some of the reports, there's mission statements. Some of them are executive statement. We do have an executive summary we can eliminate and incorporate. I'm really looking to you all at this time from a formatting standpoint, what you would like this to say. I just think it's important that we say to whoever's reading this report, and it's not just going to be the BOCC, although they'll be the most important audience, to the public and to our firefighters and to their families, that they see what our mission was here. So that's something I'm looking for. If you don't think it's important, we can strike it, but I'm looking to you to see what your thoughts are.
Jim, I think mission statement absolutely should be on there.
Okay.
And I would agree. I think maybe reiterating what their charge was to the commission, you know what, and then, but you know, all the rest is what the committee came up in response to the commissioners.
I got it. Okay. And I think there's plenty. I mean, the board has openly talked about it. You have the comments from the chair. They're in the newspaper. So I can take and summarize from that what the charge was. And we talked about it in our first meeting when the chair sat down with us and he gave us direction. So I can summarize from that and add to the section. It doesn't need to be, you know, maybe more than 2 paragraphs or, you know, 3. It's not going to be a tremendous amount of material. What are your thoughts on that?
Needs to be concise, Jim. That's fine.
Okay.
Jim, you got me?
Who's up?
John, you got me?
Yeah, I got you, John. Go ahead.
I'd just like to reiterate in that statement that we're not just another department asking for money, asking for new soccer goals or whatever. This is about creating a service that we're supposed to be providing for the citizens, not just this is trying to help cover the citizens of the county, not just another budgetary line item.
And I like that. So we're not a new department. We're rather fixing a service that provides critical critical services to the community on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis. Again, we're recommending a fix to a problem because, well, we have a problem. Is that what you're getting at then, John?
Yeah, that's correct. That this is what we think we need to help to cover the county's need.
Okay. And I think also we need to say that this is not the end all to this issue. This must be continued as far as maintaining support, looking to the future of our needs, fire stations, additional staff. This gets us on the path, but 1720 truly guides us to the end where we need to be, and it's a living document, so it will continue. So, okay. If that's
Jim, also, I think they need to understand that these issues just didn't start today. That this has been ongoing for really since 2005 when we started this process and trying to augment and ensure responses to calls.
Yeah, so it's not a new issue. One been around since 2005. We'll come up with a better date, a secured date. And it's something that can't be kicked down the road anymore. It's got to be addressed today. It's of critical importance to the health, safety.
Hey, Jim, and
Yes, sir.
I like what you just said, and that phrase you just said about it's got to be addressed today. And I think, if I may make a suggestion, I would like to see that in kind of your opening monologue and your closing monologue.
Gotcha. Let me just put a note here. And as you all are talking, I'm adding comments to this document so I can keep track of where I am. Use in opening, closing. Got it. All right, Wayne.
Jim, this is Richard.
Hey, Richard, go ahead.
We our original mission was to try to come up with recommendations to solve a failing organization inside the county to better serve the citizens and visitors of this county. And I think we need to hard on we're doing this for the citizens of the county, not for us. And a lot of people are going to look at these extra jobs and stuff like that and think it's I'm lost for words. We're out for ourselves, but this is out for the community and how to make the community better, not what's inside the organization today.
And to add to that, if I can, Richard, if we could just say not only our citizens, but the visitors. We have people that drive through this community all the time. We have our tourists. We have people that work here that may not live here. So, yeah, it's the totality. It's everybody that comes and enjoys the beauty of Putnam County. I agree.
Jim, let me mention very quickly that what we're talking about with our fire rescue EMT is it's a 24/7 organization that's been tasked by the BOCC to provide services, the protection of property and preservation of life, and their job doesn't, it's not a 9-to-5 job. When you do this, you're not funding an 8-hour day. You're funding 24 hours every day of the year. And I don't want to be overly dramatic about it, but But I think that the BOCC does recognize the importance of what we're doing and what this group of dedicated professionals do on a day-to-day basis. But
Okay.
I would certainly go in there and give them a real blast, Jim, no doubt about it.
No, absolutely.
Jim, also, just kind of add on to Mr. Perry because he's spot on, but this fire rescue is one of the very few departments or services that the Board of County Commissioners is required to provide by statute. And, it's something they can't, like John was saying, it's not, well, we'll put in the budget to get a new basketball goal in 2 years or whatever. It's the situation has become to the critical stage, that we've got to do something, and it's going to take immediate steps in this October and ongoing.
No, and that's a great point. Immediate steps now and in the future. I think we would be derelict to not address COVID here. If it has shown weaknesses, let's just say that from a staffing standpoint, we could have lost and still can great numbers of staff for 14 days plus. And just the change of how this department and staff adapted, from a fire, from a hurricane, from, different protestings, whatever we could do from an all hazard standpoint. Who would have thought that we would be having to address a pandemic and how it's been addressed? So it certainly taxed this organization like it has everything else. But I think that needs to be part of it, to say we can't continue to provide this level of service in the face of a COVID, in the face of a continuing COVID outbreak, without having this in place. I mean, do you all agree with that also?
Yes, I do.
Okay, very good.
Chad.
I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
Yes, Chad.
Go ahead, Chad.
Would it be worthy to note the how this would affect critical infrastructure and the businesses and developments that might be looking to come to the county, how putting this in place and how that would benefit that down the road?
Yeah, I do. And I'm wondering now that I just said what I did about COVID, if that wouldn't be best under more of an executive summary and not put that in our mission statement potentially, but address that, Chad, as you just mentioned, in more of an executive summary of our thoughts. I don't know. What do you all think? I don't want to lose the mission statement to a huge, a half a page or a page, and maybe definitely drill down on what you said, but put it somewhere else. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I agree with Chad. I think it needs to be in there. But Jim, I agree with you also that I don't think it belongs in the mission statement, but it does need to be in there.
Okay. Chad,
exactly what Chad said.
Chad, go back and tell me exactly how you said it so I can type it.
I'm not sure how you would word it, but the efforts that are going into fire rescue will help stabilize the infrastructure of Putnam County for the developments and commercial industries that are looking to come to the county. They require this infrastructure in place to be able to build and put businesses here, and they require a stable fire rescue environment.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. All right. I have some comments there. We just need to wordsmith it, and you'll see it again, and please add your comments to it. Efforts going into for help stabilize what new development starts looking forward to. Got it? So from a mission standpoint, mission statement standpoint, I think I have enough to work on. Anybody else want to have anything else added to that? Any other thoughts that we need? Is that David? Was that you?
Yeah, I pushed the button. I'm sorry. I'm good.
Okay, very good. All right, so I think I have enough to work on from here from a mission statement. Just to summarize, looking at their charge to us, maybe summarizing Chair Turner's comments at our first meeting to discuss that we're not a new department. We're rather fixing a service that provides critical services to the community. These are recommendations for a failing service. These are just some bullet points. This is for all the citizens and visitors of our county. We're a 24/7 organization that provides services all day long. So we can't pass that up. This is not a new issue, one that's been around since at least '05, and it can't be kicked down the road anymore. Our critical importance to the health and safety of our staff and the community. This is one of very few services the board is required to provide by statute, and immediate steps now and in the future. So should some of that come out and go into our executive summary? Should it just be the mission statement would be what our charge is? Or do you want to keep all that in there for a mission statement? What do y'all think? How about I write it up and just let y'all look at it at the next meeting, and then you can say, hey, take that paragraph out and stick it here. Y'all good with that?
Jim, I think that's a good idea, because I think that some of that will end up in our conclusions and closing statements.
Very good. I agree. Okay. So from a mission standpoint, I think I'm good. I'm going to move on if I can, if you all are okay, to, and I'm thinking how we show the board who we are. They certainly know who is appointed, but not everybody does. And, we look back at some of the older reports, and Paul Flato's mother, as a matter of fact, is in one of our reports from an older report that was presented on this topic. So I think it's important that we memorialize who we are. So if you all are okay with that, I have in here a listing of committee members. And I'm thinking more along the lines of who you are and what you represent. So your title. So me, Jim Toronto, planner, PIO, Putnam County, whatever title that you would want added next to your name, maybe that would be appropriate, or just list our name. I'm looking for some guidance from the committee.
Jim, it might be a good idea to have, particularly with our professionals and our that are on our committee, to spell out what they do. It might give the board an idea. We do have some expertise on this board, and people that deal with it on a daily basis. And, that might be a good idea. I remember when we first started the committee, when we handed out who everybody was, I was happy to have it, because it gave me some insight, clarity into who I was dealing with, you might say.
Hey, I want to echo what, Jim, this is Wayne. I want to echo what Mike said. I think it's important that we refresh the board's memory on the professionals that have given up their time, current, and even the ones that have left the service that came back to give up their time to this committee. I think that's important.
Good. That's excellent. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Mike. Anybody else? All right. So if I can, if you all will, I guess the easiest thing to do is, will you come up with a one paragraph, maybe talk about your title, if you can send to me. This is not going to be a sunshine issue, but if you could just send me your name spelled correctly, and I think I have it spelled correctly, the title, and maybe a very brief summary of, your position. Tina Hitchcock, acting battalion chief, Putnam County, employed Putnam County for X number of years. Something along those lines. What do y'all think about that? Okay. So sooner rather than later, at least before the next meeting, if everybody, and I'll make that part of my email to you on brief description and title and spelling of name. Y'all good with that? Okay. So let's move on to executive summary. I think much like the mission statement, I think we have a lot to talk about in our executive summary that we can glean from there. So we have discussed maybe the COVID, the health crisis that we have in part of that executive summary. As Chad mentioned, our efforts going to help stabilize new development and infrastructure, what they're looking for to come to Putnam County. So what else would you all want to add in this executive summary? Should it be about the time critical need of this proposal and taking action?
Yes, I think that is right on. And, you know, it seems like Putnam County goes from one fire rescue disaster to the next. It's either a hurricane, a pandemic, a wildfire season, you name it. So sooner the better.
Yeah, do not know what the future will hold. Want to be best prepared. Okay. Do you want to talk in here from an executive summary of our mindset of how we came to these conclusions? Do you want to give them the reader of this report an insight as to our thoughts of the seriousness of this? What do y'all think?
Well,
hey, Nat, I didn't see you join us, Nat. I'm sorry.
So, Jim, this is Wayne again. So
okay, Wayne.
They gave us this task, this mission. I think they know the seriousness of this. I don't know if that's. I mean, you might want to mention that again in your opening, but I think from all the commissioners I've talked to, they get it at this point. What I think our mission is to convey what we think they need to do and do now, and not, again, I'm repeating myself, not that this report goes on a shelf somewhere and not acted upon. So that would be my only 2 cents.
No, I've got that. So the need to take action now, to also talk about the follow-up, we should put in our executive summary the need to
Absolutely.
have a standing committee.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody in front of that commission every what it is to say, you know, I'm here, and because, you know, out of sight, out of mind, as you well know.
Okay. All right. I have some thought processes there. Anybody else want anything? Hey, Nat, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Hey, when did you come in on the meeting? I'm sorry, I just was.
I joined approximately like 8 minutes ago, probably.
All right, so can I just catch you up real quick of where we are?
Sure.
We've already discussed the proposed organizational chart. We've come up with a couple of changes on it. I'll send it to you in the next email.
Okay.
Also identified current costs, looked at an average for some of these positions as we discussed at our last meeting. We talked about new construction of firehouses. We're going to add the chief's budget, the current budget that he has for construction and maintenance of the firehouses. We're going to talk about one report that we're going to write, and then we'll have a PowerPoint presentation that'll be more of a condensed version of that report to give to the board. And we're just finishing up now this, what you see on the screen. We're going to have an index. We're going to have a mission statement, and I've come up with some things in that mission statement, and as well as other people have. And this is what we're writing to the reader to understand why we are a committee and why we were formed, how we got here. If you caught this part, the listing of committees, members. So if you would send me an email. Did you catch that part?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So you're with us where we are. Good.
Yeah. Hey, a couple of quick thoughts. Just one quick thought, really.
Go ahead, Matt.
In the mission statement portion of it, I came in there at the very end of that. I don't know if there's a way of bridging a component of optimism in there as well, where we're presenting needs and issues that the department needs, and how that will beneficially run their fire rescue service, and how we can more aptly do our jobs and be proficient with what we do in that regard. But is there a way of also presenting the principle of the more we boost up our fire rescue service, the more adequate it is, how that will go hand in hand with the optimistic outlook of the growth of the county, putting these stations in place, putting these personnel on the streets, getting established firehouses. Is that part of the plan to say, listen, East Palatka has a fully manned 4-man fire engine and a rescue there? That makes it where commercial industry can more aptly come in with whatever their insurance clause and stuff like that. Or am I making sense with what I'm saying?
You are, and it goes directly into what Chad mentioned just a few minutes ago about the need for us to put this together to attract new development and infrastructure. We need to attract that here to Putnam County, and if it's broken, people are not going to come, or they'll be maybe more reluctant to come. Absolutely. So yes, I think that'll be part of that discussion. And when this report comes to you next week, the end of this weekend, beginning of next, add those comments. If you don't see them in there, add it back into the report. And then when we make the presentation on the 22nd, so we look at this report, you can put your comments in there. We can move things around as we need to for the overall structure of the report. Good comments, Nat. Good job. Thank you, brother. Okay. So from an executive summary, I think I'm good. Are you all good with that so far? Okay. So this is the meat and potatoes, I would think. I mean, we certainly have grabbed their attention, but now we need to spell things out. And I just had listed observations. Do we use the word observations? Do we do recommendations? Do we do observations and recommendations? What would you like to see as a title of this section? Because as you can see underneath it, it's the areas that we're discussing plus the ISO ratings that we just added.
Throwing one out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Recommendations for implementation and funding.
Recommendations for implementation. Okay, go ahead.
That's just for discussion.
No, I got you. I'm just trying to keep up with you all. All right, so recommendations for implementation and funding. Thoughts from the committee? Can I add, Chad, to that, recommendations for immediate implementation and funding?
Yes, sir.
All right, what do y'all think about that? Recommendations for immediate implementation and funding?
I agree.
Okay, that was David or Gary, I'm sorry.
David.
All right, David, good. How about you, Gary? You good with that?
Yes, that sounds good.
All right, and again, when you see it next time, we can change it, but it's just getting us in that point or in that area.
I think we do need to do improvise.
You broke up, Gary.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, I think also we do need to improvise in there talking about NFPA. Some of this is mandated. It has to be taken care of by the commissioners because they are charged with that duty. So at some point, I think we need to put that not as a recommendation, but as mandated.
Sure. No, I agree with you. That could be, I have NFPA 1720, and we can talk about requirements also under that bullet. Good point. All right, so let's just start out then. If nobody has any heartburn over recommendations for immediate implementation and funding. And let's get into the bullets themselves. They're in no specific order, but I just started out with accountability and culture. We've discussed this at length. We've heard testimony from many of you. And I've also talked to others that are in the service that have the same concerns. So what are our recommendations for immediate implementation and funding from an accountability and culture standpoint?
Well, Jim, isn't that the proposed organizational structure?
I think that helps with that, Mike. Absolutely. So I'll add that proposed. And that will alleviate, hopefully, with positions there and the change of culture that, we have a chain of command that's carried out there. We can talk about the policy manual. I think there's a lot that we can talk here to get that accountability and culture working the right way. So, okay, proposed organizational structure, that's one. What else? Chad, don't hold back. Nat, John, Nikki, what do y'all think?
Jim?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Richard.
I know that was a big topic and it's still a problem in the service, but with the organizational chart and with this new information of the fire chief, whether it's our current fire chief or future fire chief or whatever, is going to have a direct boss, not one that's not tied to the service. Like I know right now, Chief Romay reports to Mr. Suggs, and the fire rescue may not be the hottest thing on Mr. Suggs' plate at the moment to keep up with the accountability and the problems in that service. I almost think some of our problems are going to be resolved by what they did with the restructuring of the organization.
Okay. I can tell you, Mr. Suggs does take this seriously. I mean, I've seen it, and I know that's one of the reasons. I can only assume that he wants the public safety director to add help to a failing system. Absolutely. All right. So I have a proposed organizational structure. We can talk about the public safety director. What else do we want to add as a recommendation for immediate implementation for accountability and culture?
Jim, one thing I would add is, particularly under accountability, is having one organization that includes all the volunteers, all the paid folks, all the admin folks. You've got a structure, you've got an accountability, you've got everybody's on the same page like we've talked about.
Excellent. Yeah, so we're going to go from 18 volunteer fire departments and one paid department to one department that branches out, that covers and represents everyone at the same time. Okay. Somebody said something. I'm sorry.
Chad.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Chad.
Oh, sorry, Chad. Go ahead.
Well, I think the fragmentation is what caused some of the accountability issues as we delved into this thing. And I asked Chief the question directly: did he think this org chart would fix that issue? And I believe it will. And I agree with Mr. Perry that that's the meat and potatoes to fixing accountability.
Excellent. Okay.
Jim, one thing, maybe Chief Romay addressed this and I didn't quite catch it, but I remember some of our earlier meetings, there seemed to be there was, for lack of a better word, a problem between our professionals and our volunteers. And, you know, and I think that we talked about that, about how training needs to be, I don't know, equal, or that everybody needs to go through certain training and things like that. Now, I don't know whether or not everybody thinks that that goes to culture in the department, but that's what I recall us talking about in the past is this, I won't say a conflict, but some sort of, that it was not the same organization for the professionals and the volunteers. Now, Chief Romay might have solved that a moment ago. I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
No,
So,
Mike, I'm sorry, it's Quinn.
no, you go ahead, Quinn.
I think Mike's, you know, spot on with that, because when you have 18 different ways of doing business, and then you've got EMS doing it one way, you got the full-time fireman doing it one way, and then it's all trying to be funneled up through a small straw with purchasing here, you know, and everybody's doing something different, and everybody's buying a different color of this, or they don't like this particular brand this. It becomes very problematic and fragmented in a hurry, as we have seen. And I think as you bring everything into a organized structure, and you provide a meaningful opportunity for somebody to come volunteer, because the volunteers have the same training requirements that the paid folks do, you know, with the ongoing training. The EMT paramedics have CEUs they have to do. So, you know, it's a holistic approach, if you will, to having everybody, you know, together. And if you have one person that moves from, I'll say, Interlochen to Georgetown, they shouldn't have to go through a whole new, different way of doing business. They should be able to, you know, they still want to volunteer or help out. They know the system and the way to do it.
Okay, got it. In accountability and culture, we talk about policy and procedure. We've talked about, you know, having one manual. What do you call it? The firm document? Is that what y'all called it?
Yes, it was a firm document, but that just covers fire ground operations and a little bit outside that.
But Richard, we should have one document that speaks to all, volunteer, paid. We're all using the same document. That will help change the accountability and culture, correct? So
I agree.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Tina, Joe?
Dad?
Just your thoughts. I mean, one manual, one from an operational standpoint.
Yes, one manual, and it's the document's actually there. It just needs to be gone through and tweaked. It was I actually had a lot to do with creating it, and there was some parts that were intentionally left out so it didn't affect the volunteers at that point. So I think some tweaking and going through that document, it could work well for everybody.
Got it. Okay. All right. So proposed organizational structure provides unified direction, public safety director position, having one organization with all the volunteer fire departments, the paid, the regular staff on one page, you know, working together. One manual. And what does firm standpoint stand for again?
The Fire Incident Response Manual.
Okay. Got it. All right. What else from accountability and culture? You know, obviously, the big change is going to be the implementation of this org structure and the ability to charge those in the command and control of the organization to do their jobs and to carry out, you know, their supervisory responsibilities. Anything else that you want to add to that? Just typing, I'm sorry. Sure. No problem, Jacob. Thank you for that. All right. So that gets us started with accountability and culture. The next I have, and again, we can eliminate, your choice. I have organizational structure. We've talked about it. Maybe this is where we lay it out, show the graphic as a table or a graphic itself. What are your thoughts about that?
Chad.
Go, Chad.
I'm not sure if this is the right place to bring it up or not, but I feel like when you lay out everything that's going to cost money, that it's all right there together instead of you get further down the line and then you got another 1.5 million. So that sticker shock comes at once instead of drug out throughout the whole document.
So organizational structure and staffing in one line item. We'll break it out, but is that what you're saying, Chad?
No, sir. Just the fact that, and like I said, I don't know if this is the right place to talk about it, but everything that identifies money that the board will be responsible for funding, that it's all stacked together. Mm-hmm. It's not 20 pages down the road, another 1.5 million pops up, And
I got you on that. And that's a good point. So maybe in each of these bullets that we talk about the financial, the costs of that, we could just keep under accountability and culture, delete organizational structure and just keep it there. We can put the graphic there and we can have a line there that says recommended total cost. Is that what you're suggesting, Chad?
Yes, sir. Just my thoughts. I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks about that.
I'm agreeing with Chad. I don't think we need to put the money when we present the org chart. We need to do one line item of this is the expenses of what this committee has come up with, or the budget needs, immediate needs, in one line. But we present the chart and the need for firemen, but not spell it out each individually what we're going to spend on that.
Okay. So then for accountability and culture, not only do we need the org chart there, but it's the staffing that goes along with it. So we would cover both proposed org chart, and then we would add in those 23 extra positions and then show the overall cost for that area to be what it may be broken out. Is that something you're looking at?
Just my thought. I think we ought to present under accountability the org chart to fix that accountability and cultural problem, and then go into staffing, which needs to include the current budgeted positions that are not being filled and our future wishes and needs that we have found through this committee, that we need more firemen and personnel on the road, and have all that staffing, so organizational chart, staffing, and then the budget figure.
Okay. So accountability and culture. And then the next would be staffing. That would be adding the 23 new positions in, adding in our calls for service to support, talking about the current staffing that we have and the current vacancies that we have, correct?
Correct.
My point being is, if that's where you're going to put it, then shortly behind that should be the proposed money for capital stuff. So it's all kind of lumped in.
Okay. Okay, I got it. And then add a line for costs. So they could just started to see a consistency of how the report's written and what the costs are. Okay.
Jim, also one thing I was going to mention, wherever we want to put it, is we've got NFPA 1720 in there and talking about the document and how it can help us, going forward, but we also want to talk about ISO and like Chad was saying earlier, how it not only affects and helps the commercial and development side, but your stick-built, site-built homes, they can see a reduction, so they're getting a return on their investment in the fire service, potentially from insurance, reductions, that kind of thing. But then also the Florida Statute 633 that deals with fire service and the requirements and the training requirements and the various things that the board is required to do. So you kind of gives you the why we need all this too, besides we got to meet the rules and the laws.
I got it. So we have our first bullet, accountability and culture. Our second is staffing. So we would get into capital improvements would be the next one, and that would be the recommendations. Is that what you're talking about, Chad? Because then that gets, I think the next one should be the one the chief just mentioned about NFPA and state statutes. What are your thoughts on that, committee?
My only point is just try to keep the cost of everything together versus breaking it up throughout the document. So they think it's going to cost 2.3 million, and then they get to page 28, and there's another 3 million for. I
think then to maybe help with us, Chad, on that is to, in the executive summary, maybe in closing, you will see a recommendation for $5.2 million. It will be broken down in the next sections. At least we're giving it to them, and then we're supporting it as it's underneath there. Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jim, can I ask Chad a discussion question on this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Chad, I think I know where you're headed with this. So is your concept of what you're trying to get is then for the commissioners to begin thinking, well, we've got to come up with some kind of fire service fee or something to fund this over and above what we're currently doing? Is that what you're thinking?
Not necessarily. I guess I'm not getting my point clear. If I was reading this or it was being presented to me, and your first thing is you need $2.3 million for staffing and new positions, and then we get into breaking down accountability and culture and fleet maintenance and fire stations, and then here comes another $3 million that we have to have for capital improvements and buildings. I just think if that shell shock all came at once or lumped there close together versus spreading it out throughout the presentation.
No, and I see what you're saying. So are you good with me taking the punch right in the executive summary that, overall this committee is recommending X, and we'll spell it out in the next sections, to itemize it in the next sections so they can see? Those sections would equal that amount that we put in the executive summary.
Gotcha. I think that would work.
Okay. Wayne, are you good with that?
Yep. I understand what Chad's getting at now, and I agree with him.
Roger that. Everybody else good with that?
Jim, just real quick, we need to somehow also get them to understand these are ongoing costs. It's not that they can come up with $4 million in October and then next year not do things, like Wayne's been saying, we've got to keep it in front of them, but the costs are not going to be, one and done. You're going to, as you expand, obviously the costs go up, but there's so many needs to get to where we need to be.
So that's like a computer. We buy brand new computers and we don't factor in, if we don't factor in the replacement, in 5 years, you're buying 100 new computers that you bought 5 years ago at the same time. So this is an ongoing funding process. And as things change, the fire service has to continue to change with it and not make such big steps to catch back up. Is that kind of summarized, Quinn?
Yeah, as the community grows, we've got to be able to grow with the community. Because if we get a huge subdivision and those kind of things going on, then you're going to have to provide services to those areas.
Well, yeah, that gets into, as they do get developed, staff making sure that, we look at 1,000 new homes, let's just say, well, how does that affect law enforcement, public safety, fire, EMS? And I agree with you. So that all has to be kept up in there. All right. I'll have a comment in there about that, Quinn, in the executive summary.
Jim.
Go ahead, Richard.
I just got a text from Joe and Tina. If somebody'd let them back in the meeting, somehow they got out of it.
Jacob, can you handle that, please? Good deal. All right. If you need help with power. Okay. Anything else that we want to put here, ladies and gentlemen?
I would just say that it may not need to be in our report, but make this a fluid committee and documents, and we're not going to have time to do it by the 28th. We need to start looking at a 5 and 10-year plan so the board and the future boards will not be blindsided by what we feel we need to do. And that may come down the line, but we really need to kind of plans.
So under staffing, implement a process to factor in cost of living change each year, is what you're saying, that we keep up with the changes.
Correct, but I think that needs to be put into a written plan that changes as Putnam County changes.
And Jim, and kind of what to follow on to that, if you look at the calls, and the location of the calls and the lack of response or under response, we need at least 8 stations today just to help, start to cover some of that. If we get a new big industry subdivision, whatever, that could change the whole dynamic. So
very much so. I got you on that.
Like Richard, I think, saying it's going to have to be an ongoing holistic look.
Oh, I agree with you. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So that's staffing. Anybody else want to add something else to staffing? Again, when you see it, add your changes to it and we'll bring them back to the next meeting.
Did we make mention of retention of current employees? And I know that's a dicey subject with union negotiations, but maybe even put something that's subject to union negotiations or something.
Well, I have that later on as education, recruitment, and retention. I have a bullet point for that. Can we look at that there, Chad, and add that specifically there? 10-4. All right. So moving on from staffing to capital improvements, what we discussed earlier was to adopt the chief's budget proposal for this year and include what else would you want to add in there for that? Just keep it like it is. Just adopt the tenets that he has in his proposal and start there. Do y'all agree with that? Because those capital improvements we're only looking at this time would be fire departments or fire stations, should I say. And the maintenance that he has for the rest of the volunteer departments.
Jim.
Yes, sir.
Under the capital improvement, we really do need to look at equipment and apparatuses, and all of that needs to go underneath there. We're at the county now is at the point that I don't know if we could ever replace the equipment with what we're doing now that needs to be replaced at this time.
Okay. So, Chief Romay, should we add something here to develop a capital improvement plan for replacement, 10-year plan. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and that's one thing that we have to submit every year in the budget is a 5-year plan, capital improvement plan. And I mean, this year that capital improvement plan that includes stations is over $8 million. And part of the reason is we've not been awarded or anything in capital over the last several years for sure. I think it's been five years that we've bought a fire truck of any sort. With you've got 18 stations, and you can do the math on how many trucks and all you need, and got to have a reoccurring capital to be able to facilitate keeping things on the road. And that includes airbags, that includes gear, that includes trucks, all the various sundries that we need to do what we do.
Yeah, Jim, Gary again with Chief Roy may also may want to mention in there on your first line engines out, we have a 10-year cap on those that they're only supposed to be in service for 10 years and then they can move over to secondary. And I believe we are reaching that point with all of the engines and our equipment in the county at this point in time.
Okay. So, Chief, you're developing you have a 5-year capital improvement plan now?
Yes, it's mainly dealing with trucks in the station, but yes.
Okay.
It's anything over $50,000 goes into the capital.
Hey, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Chad, some of those things that you spoke about as far as what Gary mentioned, the 10 years on a fire engine and the air packs and things like that, aren't those also NFPA requirements?
Not only NFPA, but also ISO. They look at all of that sort of stuff when they do the inspection. So that helps drive that need and change.
I believe the board asked for a breakdown of the chief's capital plan yesterday to be sent to them. It was brought up in the budget meeting or the day before, whenever the budget meeting was.
All right, so I have utilizing a 5-year capital improvement plan to emphasize that our trucks haven't been purchased in a while. There's a need for a lot of equipment. And so maybe we should be charging staff making the recommendation to the board to have them direct staff to come up with, truly put what we need in there instead of just a few things the Chief's talking about. What are your thoughts on that, Chief?
Well, not only that, we're focusing on fire, but we've got to look at EMS, replacement of ambulances and cardiac monitors. That's all got to be part of this whole solution because, the ambulances they get run ragged. They're on the road 24/7. We put 100,000 miles on a truck easy, in a very short period of time. And we've got to replace those, and add to the transports that we have, those kind of things, and look at other avenues for improving service through whether it's, staffing engines with paramedics and, longer term type things. But we've also got I don't want to focus just on buying a fire truck and lose rescue in the.
Oh, I got you. I'm writing that down. I got it. Okay.
Hey, Jim, Nat.
Go ahead, Nat.
Hey, I'm getting a ton of interference, and it looks like it keeps popping back maybe to the, I don't have a person. Is anybody else getting a lot of interference? The symbol that's on my screen now, I don't know if it's Mr. Warren or
Jacob, can you handle that?
Yeah, same here.
All right, thanks. Thank you for bringing that up, Nat, and thank you, Jacob, for fixing that. All right, so I think I have where I need to be with capital improvements. Anything else? All right. So the next title I have here, and again, we can keep these, we can change them, is NFPA 1720. We've talked about it above. Do we need to just say here, there shouldn't be a cost? Well, there's not an immediate, the costs are listed above, but that we would say here that we want to use this as a guide to move us in the future. There's not an immediate cost. However, there will be cost to implement NFPA 1720. What are your thoughts there?
Jim, I think we need to have NFPA 1720 as a standard that we all are working to meet. If we use it as a guide, then it'll get implemented and we'll still be talking about some of the same issues we have. But as far as response times and where we need stations and how to do this and that, it's a comprehensive document that kind of gives us the direction and path to get there.
So it's a comprehensive guide that's a standard to meet, not just a guide.
Right.
Okay.
Chad,
I
think
go ahead. I'm sorry, Chad, go ahead.
Yes, sir. If the committee recommends that we follow NFPA 1720, and the board will identify when they want to be compliant with NFPA 1720, then we can build the 3, 5, 7, 10-year plans to make that happen.
All right, so direct the board to adopt certain provisions from NFPA 1720.
I would probably say it a little different because I think Chad's on the right track, is have the board adopt NFPA 1720 and task this committee with giving them a path or a plan to fully implement it.
All right, so direct the board to adopt.
Kind of what you're saying, Chad? Will that work?
Yes, thanks for the wordsmithing.
All right, so direct the board to adopt NFP 1720, a comprehensive document that's a standard, not just a guide. Direct staff, not the committee, right? It would be direct staff to implement or come together with a plan for implementation.
I think it may be fair to note at that point, Jim, that we are operating a combination service, whether they adopt 1720 or not. So if something catastrophic happens and they're operating outside of 1720, they would have to come up with a very good explanation to, the person at hand that's asking the questions.
I got it. So do you all agree then, based, on what he's saying there, but we're directing the board to adopt 1720, and then for the board to direct staff, not this committee, but staff, to develop a plan for implementation? Is that good?
Yeah, Jim, I would add also to that all fire departments have to meet ISO, and I believe we said at one of our last meetings that everybody had to be a 7 or better.
I got you. Will help.
What's the fallout of that if they don't, Chief?
Well, and that's something we would need to talk about, because if somebody's not going to comply with ISO and do what the board says, they're going to have some kind of mechanism or avenue to rectify that quick. So, if they delegate it to the chief, they delegate it to the whomever, the ability. And I think part of everybody being under one structure with following the, all of these things, these are obtainable. It's not a pie in the sky kind of thing. It is going to take work on everybody's part to do it. But I think at the end of the day, it'll give us it'll give us the ability to provide the service that I think Mr. McLean and Mr. Perry and others have described, that they, that's their vision, if you will, from the citizen side on what the fire service and EMS should be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
Jim, Gary.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yes, sir. And also, like Chief Ramey had stated earlier, I believe that this committee needs to stay intact so we can help build on their projected proposals down the line and help with recommendations on it as it grows.
Absolutely, Gary, and that's one of our suggestions. We're going to get to that, but yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and so does the committee. Okay. Does anybody need a break, or still good to move directly through? We're making good progress. All right, see thumbs up. Okay.
Move on.
Move on. I like it. And I'm going to put NFP 1720 as an attachment or addendum. So we can have it as a document that we want to adopt. So we'll attach it to the report as addendum. Appendix. Okay. And there's some good language in NFP 1720 that talks about its need, in the beginning of that. So I'll use some of the language there to get us started out there.
Jim, in presenting 1720, I know in the beginning of this, there was talk about maybe even going and getting an outside consultant after this committee was done. But I think you need to point out to the board that any consultant firm is going to refer back to 1720.
And I got you on that, Richard. And I think we need to talk about that. Wasn't it I don't know whether we voted on it, but wasn't it the direction that we took that we would request the board to not spend the money on a consultant, use this? Isn't that what our direction was, or our thoughts were?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to put that in the executive summary then. CC not.
Hey, Jim, Gary.
Go ahead, Gary.
Hey, just for record, I'm with you. I don't remember if we voted on that or not, but I would recommend that we do carry a vote. That way it shows that we're all in agreement of them not hiring a consultant form, and let's go with it that way.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Everybody else good with that?
I thought we did, but we can do it again.
So I just need someone to make a motion, please.
I make a motion
And your motion is?
to this committee to what he was replying to.
So to recommend to the board not to hire a consulting firm?
That's correct. I thought we said was one of our first meetings, I believe.
I believe you're right, David, but we'll do it again.
I've got my notebook here, Jim, while you're doing this. I think we already voted on this. Not, it wouldn't hurt to do it again, but I'm going to see if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back to my minutes to see too. So I have a motion from David to recommend to the board not to hire a consulting firm to address fire EMS needs at this time, right?
What's the process to add on to a motion?
Well, I just want to make sure that, David, is that your motion? Can we use that to recommend to the board?
Motion.
Okay.
But
So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm sorry.
I do believe we've already voted on it, but I don't have it in my notes, so it wouldn't hurt to vote on it again.
Okay, so to recommend to the board not to hire a consulting firm to address our fire EMS needs. David, if that's your motion, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second from?
Nikki.
Thank you, Nikki. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Chad.
Go ahead, Chad.
Should we add to that?
Hang on one second, Chad. Hey, Jacob, can you help us with that? Thank you. Go ahead, Chad.
Should we add to that motion that that we also recommend that they move forward on the recommendations of this task force?
The motion maker, David?
Yes.
Chad is making, suggesting you add on to your motion.
And his.
Go ahead one more time, Chad.
Chad.
That we just add on the end of your motion that we also recommend that the board moves forward with the recommendations of this committee.
I agree. I second it.
Okay, so just for discussion, to recommend to the board not to hire a consulting firm to address fire EMS needs and move forward with the recommendations of this committee.
Yes.
And let me just write it out. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, a second. We're still in discussion. Any other discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed, same sign. Hearing none of opposition, I would say the motion carries unanimously. And I'll put that in the executive summary. Well done, everybody. Good deal. Okay. Going to, that finishes up an NFPA. I have the next tier of volunteer fire departments. I put that in there. I know that we have had a lot of discussion about our volunteer fire departments. Anything we want to add specifically here as a recommendation to the board?
A general question from the public to the professionals here. Does the board understand the change in scope or mentality or of the volunteer service over the last couple of years, how hard it is to get volunteers now? Do they understand that?
Wayne, I can tell you they have been informed that on many occasions through workshops and one-on-ones with them about that. Matter of fact,
okay.
I just had conversation with several of them at the end of last week about ISO and some of the calls they were getting about some issues there, and reiterated again. But it certainly wouldn't hurt to, to obviously keep talking about it.
Okay, and again, I wouldn't say we spend a lot of time on it, but I'm comfortable then that they're aware of it. I just don't want them to think, well, we just need to get more volunteers and snap the fingers and it's done. It's not that easy, as you know well.
Okay. One of the things that I know we discussed earlier on was directing, or as a recommendation from this committee, to the board to direct the volunteer fire departments to fall under the command and control of the public safety emergency services umbrella. Do we want to spell that out here and request that the board make that direction to the volunteers? What's your thoughts there?
David, I believe you're going to have to. If not, it would be a problem in the future.
Okay. Thank you, David. How about you, Gary? Your thoughts?
Jim, are we talking about falling under the policy and procedures and guidelines under the new position that they're going to hire in for the public safety director, or under the or what are we referring to at this moment? Sorry, I'm getting a lot of noise in the background.
So, Gary, if I may, the way I see it is that if there's going to be a public safety director created, that would be the head of this organization. Really, it all falls back to Mr. Suggs, the county administrator. So it would be following along in the hierarchy of the fire EMS service. So yeah, you would be reporting to your issues to the volunteer coordinator. The coordinator would spell it up throughout the chain of command.
Okay. I'm looking at, Jim, now, and the stuff we're doing right now, we're hoping on the wish list that this goes through pretty fast. Our county moves pretty slow. So we're going to have to operate with what we have in place at the time until we can get another structure going. And with that being said, I think that even the volunteer stations, for the ones that are really participating and working, would not mind going under somebody else above them as far as the rank and command structure, and let them still filter down and keep some type of rank and command structure inside their station.
Oh, most definitely. Do you agree with that also, Chief?
Yeah, we would have a rank structure, sure.
David, you keep pushing your button, I think.
How am I now?
You're talking to us.
Okay.
But I think giving everybody a clear set of guidelines, a clear mission, a clear standard, whatever you want to call it, and a level of service that everybody's providing is critical to what we're doing. And if we don't, have an organizational structure, have the clear standards and all that everybody's meeting, everybody responds to calls, everybody does X, Y, Z, whatever, then we're doing all this for naught.
I agree with Chief. I'm getting a lot of feedback again.
A lot of feedback.
Jacob, can you handle that, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Chief, one more time.
Me?
Yes, sir, please.
No, what I was just saying is we've all got to be operating off the same playbook, the same standards. We're all required to do the same things, respond to calls, yada, yada, meet ISO, meet the training standards, meet all the things that we legally and statutorily are required to be doing each and every day. And if we don't have that set of standards that's clearly spelled out by the board, then all this is for naught, because you're going to have, Station X doing one thing, Station Y doing something different, and we're no better off than we are today.
Chief,
I agree with you.
Gary or David, I'm not sure which one. Go ahead.
I agree with Chief.
Okay.
If not, we're going to end up butting our heads against the wall and accomplishing nothing. Everybody's got to be on the same page, volunteer or paid.
All right. So, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Something else. If Station X does not answer calls, does not participate in ISO, the county is going to have some teeth in there to stop spending money on that department and providing them equipment when they don't meet the minimum requirements of the county or the fire chief or the public safety director or whomever. But there's got to be some type of a standard moving forward and fall under that one umbrella.
Yeah, so isn't there a state statute in place mandating that the county commission is responsible for fire services in the county?
Yes.
What statute again was that, Chief?
It's in 633. I think it's 025 or 023, but it's in Florida statute 633.
All right, well, we'll just have them adopt that as a, that the county is responsible. So we would request the BOCC to direct all volunteer fire departments to fall under the chain of command of the fire services, giving everyone in the volunteer fire department and on the full-time side a clear direction on budget, chain of command, organizations, and operations. The volunteer fire departments will still maintain their own individual structures, command structures that ultimately report to the county, operating from one operational manual, mandating an ISO rating of no less than 7, adopting Florida Statute 633, the language there. And if the volunteer fire department does not comply with this direction, not only will they not receive funding, but they will not receive calls for service. Is that correct?
Jim, that's the way I understand it. And I think that's what it's going to come down to have to be in order for us to get the coverage and the participation and so forth that we need to provide for the citizens.
All right. I saw a bunch of thumbs up. So if I remember correctly, there was also the caveat that we were looking at to allow the county staff or just allow access to those facilities in an agreement. Was that still an issue?
Some of them are, yes.
I'm sorry, Chief, can you go one more time?
Yeah, some of them are. That's still an issue, yes.
A lot of feedback. I cannot understand anything.
Yeah, can you help us again, Jacob? Okay, so we put in here mandate access to all facilities. Obviously we're not going to let the general public just access certain areas, but from the county standpoint, that we would be mandating from a volunteer fire department access of county staff to all facilities at all times, correct?
Well, Jim, also just to kind of take it one further and talk about one of the next things we're going to talk about is logistics. Is if you've got an individual that signs up at a station and they're either very small or a larger size and they need gear, and Richard's station has got it in Malacca and he doesn't have anybody there using it, there shouldn't be any hesitation to share that, with the other stations. So, we've got to get the logistical side as part of this.
I agree with you.
We're going to talk about that coming
up.
Absolutely.
I think that should come next, logistics and supply. Wouldn't you see that obviously each of the stations, whether a full-time station or a volunteer station, needs certain equipment, a certain stock that, Band-Aids, that kind of stuff, medical supplies, fire equipment. But from a logistics supply, wouldn't you think that everything has to be issued from one place? So all those caches of supplies would come to that one location. And then from there, if a volunteer or a full-time person needed something, you'd go to the logistics officer or your quartermaster, and that person would issue that out. Wouldn't we be looking at then not only the sharing, but maybe the returning of identified items to a logistical staging area to be doled out? I don't know how that should word.
Chad.
I'm sorry, who?
Chad.
One more time.
Chad, can you hear me?
Yeah, Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, I think to sum all that up, I agree with everything you said, but any equipment or anything that is purchased by Putnam County funds is administered by Putnam County. And if I don't think that it necessarily needs to be shared. It needs to be reassigned if it's not being used, and through that logistics guy.
I got you. So I can envision stuff going to one place and then Gary saying for his station, hey, you know, I need this. Well, the coordinator says, yeah, absolutely. Here you go. And it comes to your station. That's how that would work. Correct, Chad?
Yes, sir. And if Gary's station got to the point that they no longer needed that piece of equipment, it would be turned back into logistics.
I got you.
And also, Jim, just as a side note, that would give us the ability to go out and bid, gear, for instance, and have a cash on hand ready to go. And you've got a standard set of gear, not 12 different ways of doing business and colors and all that. So you can
standardizes. I got you. So if I have an air pack that's made by X and it works one way, and that's the direction that the county is buying all their equipment, well, it's all the same, is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Well, not only that, we can go out for bids and get a better price, getting a bulk order than we can getting it onesie twosies, as we go along. So we can save money. That's part of the overall logistical, method, I guess, if you will, to ultimately save money and help with our cost.
I got you. All right. Anybody else?
On the logistics, I'm not going to get into the everyday running of logistics, but on the bigger capital end, there's a lot of trucks that are assigned to slower stations or stations that aren't participating because of manpower that could be moved around this county to take the trucks that are running every day, the paid engines. Gary Station runs a lot of calls, stuff like that, that I think we can move a lot of stuff around logistically to save the county a ton of money.
So review equipment allocation and assignment to ensure best use of equipment.
Goes back to what I said. If the county purchases it, they administer it.
I got you on that. But we also want to be fair to the volunteer fire departments that they get the things that they need. I got you.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Take that and put that here. Okay. So I think that takes us through the volunteer fire department. It's given us a lot to write about. And under logistics and supply, I have the direction that all county purchase equipment will be managed and issued by logistics. Gives a greater ability for us to bid for equipment at a cheaper price or buy it, and standardizes our equipment throughout the service. We would review equipment allocation assignments to ensure best use of resources. All right. I do believe that this person in logistics will pay for themselves. I think that it's that great of a need.
Definitely.
Okay. Anything else you want to add to logistics and supply? Okay. So the ones that I have left, let me just see. We included ISO ratings in volunteer fire departments. Do we want to have ISO rating come before volunteer fire departments and just talk about it as a separate topic instead of waiting till the end?
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter if it's volunteer or paid, that area should be at least a 7. It
All
should
right.
be across the board kind of
I'm just
thing.
I'm gonna put it here, and I'm gonna say, give me a second. Let me just do a little formatting.
I think that's what Gary recommended, isn't it?
I think he did too. Yeah, he did. We voted on that as a committee.
Yes, that was a recommendation of it. I thought that would be a fair for everybody across the board to start with.
Right.
And Chief, you said it best. We mandate an ISO rating of no greater than a 7?
Less.
It's 7 or less.
Okay. Okay. All right. And I'll add something from ISO here.
And one thing we all know, we're going to have to work together to get to that, because part of the ratings are your tanker shuttles and those kind of things. So as we move along, it's going to take training, logistics, the organizational, the volunteers, all to, working together to make it happen.
All right. I got you, Chief. All right. We're moving well. We're doing good. So I took ISO out, put it above there. So we're left with training, education, fleet maintenance, interfacility transfers, and standing EMS fire committee. Would you say that fleet maintenance would be covered above, or do we want to specifically talk about fleet maintenance?
Well, that was my point Jim, this is Wayne. That was my point the other day. I don't know. We want to get into fleet maintenance. To me, that, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe that we're getting a little bit into the weeds. Just an outsider looking in. That's all.
Okay.
Jim, also to tag on to that, training for full-time volunteers and everybody, if they adopt NFPA 1720 and it's already in the Florida statutes and the administrative code, what has to be done in the standards. So I think if we follow the Florida statute and adopt NFPA, we're going to take care of that one.
Okay. So then NFPA will address, 1720 will address our training needs for full-time volunteer and staff.
Yeah. Anybody, Richard, Chad, y'all got any?
I agree.
Good. This is good. It just streamlines the process that much more. All right. So I took that out, taking fleet maintenance out. We did talk about, the need to keep our equipment, in that capital improvement plan that the chief has. But I want to go back to something Gary said. Currently the equipment that we have is in very poor repair. Is that correct, Gary?
Yes, it took me a minute to get to the button. Yes, sir. It's not. A lot of it sits idle. It doesn't even get to run through maintenance over there, and there's no set schedule at maintenance for it to even be called in to even do a routine service or inspection on it. My biggest concern is that we're fixing to exceed the expiration date of a Class A first out engine under the NFPA. And like Chief Roy May was saying, if we don't start replacing some of this equipment, our ISO is not going to really matter anyway, because we're not going to have the equipment to meet the standards.
Okay. I'm going to add that up into logistics and supply when we talked about review equipment allocation assignment to ensure best use of resources. I'll just add a statement there about maintenance.
Yes.
Okay.
Now that, Jim, the maintenance department is a whole other issue. We probably could have a subcommittee that could deal with that. It'd be a whole entity of its own.
Okay. So we're left with 3. The next one is education, recruitment, and retention. We talked about, networking with the college, networking with the high schools. We talked about incentive for new hires. We talked a lot on this topic. We're looking at the implementation of a recruiter, really mandating everybody within the organization to be a recruiter. And that should help with retention. That gets our message out to the community. So what are some specific points that we want to address here?
Chad,
Go ahead, Chad.
I think the county for a long time has missed the opportunity on earned media. There's a lot of bad calls that have good outcomes and a lot of things that could be used as an opportunity to educate the public that should be looked at a little tighter and maybe get that PIO officer more involved in educating the citizens of Putnam.
And Jim,
Okay. Go ahead.
It's Quinn, just to tag on to that, recruitment and retention is critical in what we're doing. And we've got to have the folks to go out and on a day-to-day basis, go actively, seek out new folks to come in, because as everybody's getting older, you got folks retiring out on one side, but we just don't have the same number coming in on the other side is one issue. But you've also got to look at all of the various things to entice folks, the incentive, the retention piece of this too. So we need to really actively, go to schools, go to the tech centers, go to the various training facilities, go work with the high schools to help, recruit new graduates and things like that. So, I mean, it's a big need and it's a big job.
Oh, I got you. And we really stressed in our last meeting or the meeting before about the homegrown staff, that people right out of high school, hey, let's hire you, let's get you trained, let's get you into the fire service, homegrown employees, so they stay here.
Jim,
go ahead, Gary.
Gary. Also, on that same base, we need to figure out some type of a little bit better incentive program for your volunteers, and that way even help you get a base in to pick from your schools. It'll come to your volunteer stations to volunteer if they have a little bit of something more to entice them, and then as they get their training, then they can move on in towards the career path.
So didn't we talk about that, offering them Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 to all volunteers?
Yes, sir, we did that. We're probably going to put some other kind of package together. We have a little incentive package now, depending on your amount of training that the county pays. We may want to try to address that for the volunteer side. Like I said, we can maybe increase the force a little bit if we had a little bit better package to offer them on the call volumes and stuff like that. It's just, I'm putting it out there for us to give us some thought to.
So incentive for volunteers, training on Firefighter 1 and 2, and then maybe asking the board to direct staff to work with volunteers to identify potential incentives for volunteers?
Yes.
I agree. The little bit of money that volunteers are getting is an insult.
Okay. Didn't we talk about at the last meeting something that Palaca Fire Department's doing with the college? Didn't we want a team with them on that? Wasn't that like an academy of some sort?
No, it was with the high school, with the school board, and we're part of that ongoing dialogue. But I think JR is doing some additional teaching and interaction with them. But what we're looking at is trying to do like a vocational track in the high schools to do, like you have welding, you've got carpentry, you've got automotive, those kind of things now, is have one for, public safety, fire rescue.
I got you. So vocational track in the high school. Okay, go ahead.
And this is Wayne. And Quinn, those conversations are now filtered over into to the college
Right.
with the vocational person out there. So those discussions are hot and heavy going on.
Right.
Okay, got it. All right, because, again, the implementation of the org chart, getting staffing where it needs to be, capitalizing on those things. We talked about that being the true fix for this organization. Helps us with our education, getting that message out to the community, but recruitment and retention also, hiring that person through that plan and just making things consistent would hopefully and fair would want to keep people here. You all agree with that?
Jim, Chad.
Go ahead, Chad.
I know we had discussed it early on, the possibility of like an internship and being able to pay the folks on like a part-time basis to get exposure and do ride-alongs and things of that nature. Is would it be worth putting a bullet point here that, you know, that could require a little additional funding to do that?
So yeah, we could put in here direct staff to identify the paid internship program. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Right on.
Okay. Got it.
Hey, Jim, Nat.
Go ahead, Nat.
Hey, a while back, a few of us had approached the chief and some others about an employee appreciation program. Just kind of jumping around here for a minute, you know, in the beginning of this meeting, you know, as we talked with Mr. McLean and Mike about, you know, how the service worked. For me, as someone that works in the service and is used to it, and my family's used to it and how it runs, to hear those two gentlemen go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that's how things were. I had no idea that this is the way things are. To me, I really do feel like a majority of the public kind of just sits back and thinks that what happens on TV or what happens in St. Johns County or wherever is what's happening here. And irregardless of call response and all the stuff that's going on, putting our face, putting the employees for Putnam County, putting the volunteers for Putnam County in front of the county commission for an employee appreciation program. You know, 2-3 months ago, we had a volunteer from Station 9 single-handedly handle a fire until, you know, another engine could get there and back up, saved 2 structures that were on each side of it. And so we sent that message up and it really never went anywhere. But those are the kind of things that from an employee standpoint, when we're talking about retention, for me and for the guys that are out there and for the volunteers that really are busting their butts out there to do good and to maintain their proficiencies with their job and are making a difference, when that is brought before a commission, not only is it a benefit for the employee, but it really is a benefit for the viewing public to go, hey, our professionals are out there kicking doors in and putting out fires and snatching people out of a drowned lake and all the things that do happen that really doesn't get any recognition. In the end, it would be a benefit for the employees and for the system itself. But it really is something for the citizens to be able to go, okay, you know, a volunteer in the West End was able to handle this. A volunteer in Georgetown was able to do that. The career staff was able to handle that. Whatever. It puts our dynamics out there for the public eye.
I like that.
And I agree wholeheartedly with that. And we've had this conversation. We've got several things in the hopper. We were going to do some a couple of the calls at some of the earlier meetings, and then the COVID came along. But yes, we definitely need to be doing that, and we're working on you know, the right time when the board is having face-to-face meetings and we're out of this situation.
Nat, does that help you?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the chief and I had dialogue on this before, and obviously the brakes got pumped and all this other stuff started happening. So just as far as the committee goes, when we're dealing with retention and recruitment, honestly, as a young man, to see, you know, firemen getting rewarded for doing their job and doing it well, that would encourage me to go, man, I'd like to be a fireman, you know, or the, you know, the TV applicable parts of our job that really doesn't get seen. You know, it does happen in real life. And when the county can recognize that and people can sit back and go, you know what, this is a worthwhile career. Just my thoughts.
No, I like it.
To kind of add to that, Jim, real quick, is that was part of my thought process with the recruitment and retention person, is having that person not only dedicated to recruiting, but part of retaining them is obviously recognizing and rewarding folks for the good things they do. So having somebody on a day-to-day basis that is focused on those things and bringing it forward so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
Roger that. Anybody else?
I just think that having our org chart come to fruition is going to help with all of this. You know, if we have somebody that's out there beating the bushes in the schools, somebody that's out there singing the praises of the people that are working here or volunteering here, it's just going to, in time, somewhat fix itself. Nat and I have been part of the people that go out to the college, and there's interest there for people to come into this. We just have to create an avenue and somebody that has the time to capitalize on that opportunity for us.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good to me. Anything else for education, recruitment, and retention? All right. Next is interfacility transfers. I think this is an easy one. We voted to recommend. I'm sorry, somebody said something? Okay. We voted to recommend the county stop all interfacility transfers from Putnam Community Medical Center. Do we need to say anything else about interfacility transfers? Group, anything else?
I know that's our end goal, but we need to explain to the county board of commissioners in that statement that the stress that it was putting on its employees and the protection of the citizens of the county is why we made that decision.
Yeah, so we could say there was stress, loss of available resources, lower morale. What else?
Additional wear and tear on equipment.
Okay.
No guaranteed payment.
There you go. Okay. It focuses our resources on our needs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just trying to type. Okay. All right, moving on to here nothing else there. Standing Fire EMS Committee. We've certainly voted and directed the BOCC that they create a Standing Fire EMS Committee that will not only monitor this proposal and its implementation, but to make recommendations to the BOCC on a routine basis. What do you think? Anything else we need to add there? Committee thinks it's important for what other reason?
Ensure that we are that our recommendations are being followed or coming to light.
And so that this doesn't continue to be a problem, correct? That, you know, we've had issues since 2005. We've got to, and in order, I guess, not to allow issues to be created and to be unresolved, that they're addressed on a routine basis.
Jim, Chad.
Go, Chad.
Could just a thought. Could the standing committee also be used by the public safety director or the fire chief to bounce ideas off of for future planning?
You know, that's something that the public safety director, the fire chief, you know, can certainly create their own committee with direction from the administration. That can be done. However, it may be best done by being board appointed. It gives them, you know, a clearer direction. It's it's something that's put in place by the board. There would be rules to follow. There'd be some sunshine associated with it. I don't know. I think it'd be best coming from them. At least it's out in the open. Just my thoughts. What do you all think? And it's spread throughout the county rather than just certain suggested, individuals. Each district commissioner would have their own appointments to that.
That makes sense.
And along that same lines, Jim, I was thinking with this, obviously there's some kind of, I think ultimately there's got to be some kind of fee that comes out of this, or something that's got to be, to pay for this, because it's not in the initial budget right now. I kind of see this as, for the ones of you who've been around a while, it's almost going to be like a better place plan program where this has got to go out and be sold to the community. I don't think it's going to be a tough sell when the community begins to understand what the professionals are faced with, but I do think that's what it's probably going to end up being.
Okay. Okay. So my last bullet point I have is a conclusion or a closing statement. What do y'all prefer? Closing statement, conclusion?
I just have one stupid question.
Cool. There are none of those, but go ahead, David.
Several years ago, Gary was having training 3 days a week, A, B, and C shifts, volunteer or paid, and we were doing a lot of training that way. Who would be doing that job as we listed all these people out that we're hiring?
The training section person that's in there, the training coordinator. I'm not sure what the title is, but and they wouldn't be necessarily doing it 3 days a week. They'd probably be doing something just about every day of the week, day, night, to accommodate everybody.
I believe that was a big bonus, and I think it will be for us again. But that was just where my mind was hung up. I'm a little slow sometimes.
No, you're right on, David. And also this person would have direct access to the tech center's burn facility, training grounds, and all that. We've got a agreement with them now, but they would certainly could go over there anytime and set it up, obviously, and schedule it, and take a group over or bring this, do that. So whatever class it would be, whatever training it would be, it could be something as simple as ladders and how to take care of ladders, all the way up to fireground tactics and fire 1, fire 2, and on all the different training they would be responsible for handling throughout the county.
Okay, thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for answering my question.
Oh, you're good to go. It's all a team effort. All right, so let's see. Getting into our ending. So we want conclusion or closing statement? What do we want? Does it matter?
I prefer conclusions, but
conclusions. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. So it would be a. Go ahead, please.
I'm sorry, it's Quinn. I think you need to reiterate the critical, time-sensitive implementation of this, and the like Mr. McLean said, has been very eloquent in saying we can't keep kicking this down, or they can't keep kicking this down the road. So we need to make sure that they understand this is not a proposal to sit on the shelf.
Got it.
Following up on that, Jim, I think we also need to put on there that that what the committee has asked for is what it is basically the basic necessities of these departments.
Right.
We're not overreaching here. These are reasoned requests that can be, the need for them can be documented, and that that these are things that absolutely need to be done, and that we're not asking for anything more, just to be a proficient department.
Got you. I'm almost done. Okay.
Hey, Jim, Nat.
Oh.
Hey, in the very beginning, one of the things that's just kind of sticking out in my head, what Richard Back brought up when he was talking about paying his garbage fee, comparison to what his fire fee or tax, whatever it is for the county. I don't know if the shock and awe would be of any benefit in listing the importance and the implementation of this, but just to kind of show maybe the imbalance between the fees and penalties that pay based on necessity. Not saying that garbage is necessity, but just I don't know. For me, it was shocking. I actually went home and looked to see what I paid in comparison. It's amazing. It's almost 3 times what garbage than what I do for fire protection. I don't know if that would be worth mentioning in passing in this document or in them or not.
Okay. No, I think so. And if we don't like it, we can always take it out.
Jim, I'd certainly put it in there. I think Matt's spot on. It shows the contrast. I mean,
right.
Why not?
I got you. Okay. So if I can, I'm going to, hey, Jacob, are you still with us? Can I send this to you and you post this and we'll go through it real quick? So I have been typing and adding stuff in here. There are just some comments that I wanted to share with you to make sure that we all agree to the next steps here. Jacob, as soon as you get it, if you can post it for us, please. We've accomplished a lot today, folks. Good job. And we're almost finished. I have a couple of comments to go over from some people in the community, and then we will be done. Yeah, but I got you with all the behind the scenes data. So we're seeing a screen with there. Oh. No, sir. There we go. Can you make it into one page? Well, then let's just keep, if it's an issue for YouTube, I want the community to be able to see this. Go back to the other, that's fine. All right. Folks, so what I did is just I took our statements and summarized them here. As you can see, the index will be a listing of sections and pages. And our mission statement, these are just some bullet points. I need to bring it all together. My goal is to present this to you before the next meeting, give you an opportunity to review it, and then from there, you provide your recommendations at the next meeting, and then we finalize our report. So if you can look at this first page where it's mission statement, anybody have any other additions to add to that? Just some bullet topic points. We'll have to summarize it. Everybody good with that? Okay, let's go. Jacob, listing of committee members is our next. Our goal there is for you all to provide your title, your brief blurb about you, as far as your standing at the organization or where you are in the community. And then I'll use your comments from each and break that down. So I just need that sent to me individually. You don't have to send it to the whole group. And then I'll incorporate that in our listing of our committee members. Our executive summary, if you can see that, these are some bullet points that we're going to look at. I'll put them together. If you all are good with that. Give you a couple more minutes to look at it. Just kind of give me thumbs up when y'all are good with that. Okay, good deal. I'm seeing thumbs up for most. Nikki, can you still hear me? Gotcha. I like the thumbs up. Good job. Recommendations. So we have accountability and culture. Jacob, there you go. Thanks. These are our title areas that we're going to look at, expand upon. And when I say add graphic, I'm going to take and create that chart that we show not only where the what the staff are, but where they're going to go. We're looking at Station 6 and Station 4. And then I'll have in here the line costs for that section. Everybody good?
Yeah, Jim, question on Station 4. I know I didn't make the last meeting, but was that 7:24 or is that for daytime start?
Well, that will depend, obviously. I think there's an opportunity to that has to be explored to determine what we can do either at 12-hour shifts or doing 24-hour. And then we're looking at a new building to be built out there for our needs. So that's what we're going to look at, if that helps, Gary. Gary, is that good?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Go
ahead, Quinn.
Under capital improvements, the very last line there where it says NFPA requirements and helps increase ISO ratings, we want to improve, not increase them. Because the higher the number, the worse you are.
All right, I got it. Thanks, Quinn. Okay. That takes us to capital improvements. We're looking at NFPA. And I'm going to use some of the language in that document to open the discussion. Just talking about that we are a volunteer and full-time department. We would direct the BOCC, as we mentioned. And we'll address the issues of our full-time volunteer and staff training. Everybody good with that? All right. For ISO ratings, we said there would be a mandate of an ISO rating of 7 or less countywide. I'll get some language about ISO here so people can understand what it is. And as it's been mentioned, there's much work that we need to do together to make this happen. It's just not going to happen overnight. It's not like a snap of our fingers and it's going to happen. If everybody's good, we'll go on to volunteer fire departments. We will request the board to direct all volunteer fire departments to fall under the chain of command of fire services, giving that clear direction to all on budget, chain of command, and operations. They will still maintain their own individual structures that report to the county. We talked about one manual. Again, we talked about the ISO rating. We said if they do not adhere to our provisions, they will not be funded or requested for calls for service. Talk about the adoption of Florida Statute 633. Talk about the access to the facilities. And then reviewing equipment allocation assignment to ensure best use of resources. Everybody good with that? Okay. Logistics and supply. You'll see it on your screen. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We've kind of beat this one up pretty good. If I hear no objections, I'm going to move on to education and recruitment and retention. Just a few bullet points here. And then finally, I'm not saying finally, should I say interfacility transfers. Talk about our thought process, our recommendation, and then the direction of focusing our resources on our true pressing needs. Finally, for this section, we'll have our standing EMS fire committee that the board would create. We believe it's important to ensure that these recommendations are followed and issues are addressed on a routine basis. It also can be used to gain support in the community. This committee is community-based and will also help teach or learn of issues in the community. And at the very end is our conclusions. The summary of above, as you can see there, this is not a new issue. We talked about that under the executive summary, the critical importance to health and safety. And look, we have the other studies have said basically the same thing, except we're just farther on down the road. Not creating anything new, just fixing the department and placing it where it should be. Makes us more proficient and the processes will be streamlined. You hope that that's what the end result would be. And also talk about the contrast, the trash fee, and what it pays for as compared to what we have, which is basically nothing. So I'll do that from a conclusion standpoint. Everybody good with that? So I'll send it to y'all. Keep your comments. Be prepared to discuss your comments at the next meeting. I will like, if I can, ahead of time to get your name, spelling, title, and a couple of comments about you. So I can add it to this. We are scheduled to meet again on the 22nd. We agreed to that already, July 22nd at 9 a.m. It will be via Zoom. And are there any questions up to this point? I have a couple of citizen comments that I want to read. Nat, you good?
Good.
All right. So I sent you all in the email yesterday. It was a link from Mr. Tim Hoetling about Palm Coast and the past 10 years of their fire service. Did everybody get an opportunity to see that? Okay. I wanted to pass that on. I did get a request from Miss Yvette Reyes. If I need help with a PowerPoint, she was willing to volunteer her time. She says this needs to be presented in a concise manner. I have seen commissioners dismiss long presentations with saying they already know the stuff that they were presenting. This just isn't a department. I'm sorry, this isn't just a department that is not needed. We need you and volunteers. You aren't just putting out the fire. I live on 19 and I watch and pray every time you run past. So that's Ms. Arias. If I need her assistance, I'll certainly reach out to her for assistance. And then this is for Jim. His name is Jim Horn. He lives in Melrose. And he says, where is the proposed Station 6 to be located? Well, isn't Station 6 already existing on 207?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to write to him, this is an existing station on State Road 207. What's the intersection there to it?
Cabbage Patch.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm going to send this to him real quick. And then he has one other question. Will these documents presented be made available for downloading after the meeting? Certainly. You know, that report will be, our report will be public, and I'm sure we'll put it on the county website somewhere for people to be able to see. I'll respond to him. That's all the comments that I have from the community. We're good with our next date. I have no citizen comments. Is there anything else that we need to be discussed for the good of the order of this committee? Any last words of thought before we break until our next meeting? Okay, so if someone would make a recommendation to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to end the meeting.
David, motion. Second.
Yes.
By Mike.
Yep.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I'll adjourn the meeting at 11:53 a.m. Thank you all. I really do appreciate your support and your commitment. And I look forward to getting this thing completed next week. Y'all have a good weekend and stay safe. All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.